The freestyle walking sport of parkour has increased over the years. It made its debut at the World Games in July 2022 in Birmingham, Alabama. The purpose of parkour is for a person known as a tracer to use their body to get from one point to another in the most efficient way possible and to get around any obstacles in their way. It is done on or near the ground, or it can be done at elevated locations. There have not been a lot of parkour deaths in the grand scheme of things, at least not a ton that have actually been reported that way. However, if you're performing parkour stunts at dangerous heights, you are certainly putting your life at risk. St. Petersburg, Russia, June 2012. A 24-year-old woman and her older sister hanging out with 4 parkour tracers on a rooftop. Neither of the ladies have any experience in the active sport of parkour, but the 24-year-old has watched it before and found it exciting. She was eager to try it herself. Normally, practitioners will start out jumping from objects on or near the ground level, before working up to more physical and dangerous challenges atop buildings, and what have you. The group was on top of an 18-meter building, and they were jumping across to a 14-meter building that had a 7-meter gap in between. The 4 men had lots of experience in parkour, and they were able to jump from one building to the next with no difficulties, making it look easier than it actually was. They yelled across to the young ladies, encouraging them that they could do it as well, and that it is not very hard. They assured them that they have nothing to worry about. The older sister would not take the bait. Why would she take the chance and risk her life to impress these guys she didn't know very well? Her younger sister was more of an adventuress, and she was very impulsive. She would act before weighing out the foreseeable consequences of a given situation. Before the older sister could stop her, she was running to jump off the edge of the roof. Older sister would scream out her name and say, "Wait." She hadn't given herself enough of a running start. The older sister looked in horror when she saw her sister gliding in the sky and realized she was not going to clear the gap. The younger sister reached her arms up as she got close to the building, and the gravity of her misjudgment hit her like a heavy punch to the gut. She was now certain she was going to miss grabbing onto the top. She screamed as she hit the side of the building. There was no place to grab onto, no place to go except down. She fell approximately 55 feet, or 17 stories, and would sustain injuries that would prove to be fatal. The guys on the second building watched on as she hit the concrete below, and their jaws hit the floor. They immediately freaked out and fled the scene. They didn't want to be around when the police got there. They figured they might be held accountable. This was a truly tragic yet avoidable death. The girl had no experience as a tracer in the world of parkour. But there have been others who are seasoned tracers with tremendous experience, but it would only take one little slip-up from them to meet an untimely demise. St. Petersburg, Russia, July 2013. 20-year-old Pavel Kashin would attempt to do a backflip on a 3-foot ledge of a skyscraper building over 200 feet tall. Kashin was known as a parkour guru. Although he was only 20, he had been doing this for a long time. He was named as one of the best free runners in the world for his breakthrough stunts. He was very agile. He could do flips front and back and land while doing a roll to soften his landing. He had no fear, and many were in awe of him and his skills. But him being so young, he may have thought he was invincible. He might have thought that he couldn't make a mistake big enough that it would cost him his life. That day, his friend would videotape the event. Being that the ledge he would be jumping and flipping off was only 3 feet wide, there was no room for error. Unfortunately, when he went to land, he would miss a step and fall 16 stories to his death. Surprisingly, his parents approved of the video of his accident to be uploaded online for people to view. They wanted people to see it as a warning, so they wouldn't make the same awful mistake their son had made. Pavel Kashin was so young and had so much potential. The sky was the limit for this kid. He would ultimately die less than 2 weeks from his 21st birthday. September 26, 2019, 2:30 p.m. 28-year-old Colombian woman Maria Vallejo was making a jump with 7 other people. She had come from the Skydive Lodi Parachute Center. Her parachute was on. She had felt confident that day about landing safely. After all, she had made around 150 previous jumps and hadn't had any problems. But today was different. The wind was ferocious, and before she knew it, she was being whisked away from her group. She was barreling toward the earth at top speeds. She was approaching Highway 99 in San Joaquin County, California, and she would lose all control. She ended up colliding with the rear of a big rig before crashing hard into the ground. Unfortunately, the parachutist would die instantly. This would cause a chain reaction, with 3 vehicles crashing behind a semi-truck. The Lottie Parachute Center would have a long history of deaths since their inception in 1964. Although they claim they don't keep track of how many people have died, the center's owner, Bill Doss, claims there probably have been at least 18 since the year 2000. Thrill seekers don't necessarily have to be daredevils or stunt performers. People who go on potentially scary rides at amusement parks like roller coasters are doing it for that adrenaline rush. You can close your eyes and feel that rush like you're in a free fall, and some roller coasters can travel as high as 140 miles per hour. But it doesn't take long for it to slow down and come to an end. Then you get off with a big smile on your face. People go on these rides because it has that sense of danger, but they are confident they will come out safely. The chance of a serious injury or death occurring on a ride are very minute, but it does happen. Sometimes there are mechanical issues that should have been examined and addressed beforehand. Sometimes ride operatives were not trained properly, and a situation arises that they don't know how to deal with, and they panic and don't stop the ride in time. Or sometimes the operative doesn't realize that there are people on the ride, or they hit a wrong button. July 9th, 1980, outside Branson, Missouri. Silver Dollar City was one of the most beloved family amusement parks throughout the country. It had first opened 21 years prior. 23-year-old James Frederick Polly was there that day. He was in line with his wife Mary to ride the Fire in the Hole roller coaster, which was the park's biggest attraction. It is a 3-story steel enclosed structure, which is partly underground. The roller coaster uses mine carts that speed along and eventually plunge into a pitch-black mine shaft. James, Mary, and several other people got into a 2-car train, eager for the ride to begin. For some reason, the train was switched from the main track and onto a maintenance track and into a storage area. Sometimes cars are sent to this area for repair, but this maintenance bay was never designed for people to come into in one of the cars. A low overhang or ceiling would be at eye level on this track with anyone passing through. Maintenance workers saw the train had customers in there, and there was a collision course up ahead that was hard to avoid. They yelled at the passengers to duck, but sadly James could not make out what they were saying, or was unaware that they were yelling at him. James would end up smashing his head on the low-hanging door. The train could possibly have been going as high as 30 miles per hour at the point of impact. There was a total of 15 passengers in the 2-car train. Other than James, only one other person had sustained injuries. Gloria Giles was from Murray, Iowa, and would be released from the hospital the following day. To this day, it has not been reported how the mistake occurred. Either the wrong train was directed to the maintenance track, or a wrong button had been pressed by the operative. An internal investigation was said to have taken place, but nothing was reported to the public. No criminal charges or civil litigation came from this, and new policies and procedures would be enacted to avoid another tragedy like this. And there hasn't been another one like it in the last 40 years. However, in July 2022, another tragic death would occur at the park when a maintenance worker had died of blunt force trauma to the head. He had been rushed to the hospital following an incident while he was working on one of the roller coasters. He would die a short while later. There's not much details on the cause of the injuries, but the incident is less than 2 months old at this point, and it's still being investigated by OSHA. The man's name had not been reported. All we know is he had been working at the park since 2017. In the summer of 2010, 12-year-old Tegan Marty traveled with her parents to Wisconsin from Parkland, Florida, where they're from. They went to an amusement park called Extreme World. Tegan had seen a promo video for the amusement park on the Travel Channel. There was a free-fall ride called Terminal Velocity, and she talked her parents into going. And now here they were, and she was planning on enjoying this wonderful experience. In the ride, the participant is taken up to the top of a tower by an elevator, and they are in a safety harness. A dive master takes control from there, and lowers them down to a trap door. The trap door is approximately 100 feet off the ground. Once the dive master unhooks the harness on the participant, the rider is in a free fall. The rider falls down into a safety net that is ready to catch them 40 feet above the ground. From there, the rider is gradually lowered by the net and can walk away safely as they get to the bottom. The problem in this case was that the ride operator unhooked Tegan's harness too soon because he wasn't paying attention. The safety net was still on the ground. It was not suspended in the air at all. The airbags were still being blown up to lift the safety net, and the employee on the ground never gave the go-ahead signal. Then Tegan would hit the ground hard, hitting her head and back after dropping about 100 feet. Her mother ran to her side. Tegan was bleeding out of her ears, mouth and nose, and her lips had turned purple. She was airlifted to the American Family Children's Hospital at the University of Wisconsin, and she would fall into a coma. Her injuries included brain swelling, severe spinal and pelvic fractures, and lacerations to her liver, spleen, and intestines. Her situation was critical, and it didn't look like she was going to make it. Her dad saw her hit the ground and figured she had died right there. In the hospital, her mother learned that she was now a quadriplegic, and she wasn't certain of her daughter's future on Earth. Tegan would come out of her coma, and Mom Julie would have to explain to her what happened. Tegan asked if she was in an accident on the ride. Julie said, "Yes, baby, they didn't catch you right." It was a miracle that Tegan even survived, but she had suffered brain and spinal damage, so it was anyone's guess what she would be capable of doing. Over time, she would make progress, physically and mentally. She would be out of school for a full year, but she would work on getting stronger physically. She would be in physical therapy 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for a while, and her hard work finally paid off. She would be able to walk with the use of a walker and continue school online, and she would eventually get straight A's. The ride operator who dropped the ball, Charles Carnell, would be convicted of second-degree reckless endangerment after taking a plea deal. He claims he blanked out. Originally, he was charged with first-degree reckless endangerment, and he could have been sentenced to 25 years in prison. In the end, though, he did not receive any jail time. The Martys would sue Extreme World. They would settle and be given an undisclosed amount. In 2022, Tegan is still doing well. Over the years, she's had a lot of help, including generous donations, some are from celebrities, including Charlie Sheen. Tegan Marty is not only a miracle, but an inspiration.
The road to recovery is looking up for a Florida teen. 3 years ago, Tegan Marty was seriously injured after falling 100 feet from an amusement park ride near Wisconsin Dells. She suffered spine, pelvis, and internal injuries when nets and airbags that were supposed to catch her were not raised. Thanks to the generous donation from a famous celebrity, Marty is able to have a dog that will help make her life a little bit easier. Emily Dean was with Tegan and the people making this all possible, and she joins us now live in the studio with more. Hi, Em.
Yeah, Rachel, good morning to you. Tegan Marty is from Florida, but is spending her spring break in Wisconsin. We were there as she came face to face with her new four-legged friend, and it was an instant connection. It's not something 15-year-old Tegan Marty sees every day. Tegan, are you a little overwhelmed right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Lights, cameras, photographers.
Tegan, you wave to everybody.
Shy but happy, Tegan traveled more than 1,000 miles along with her mom Julie to be in Milwaukee to meet those making her dream of having a therapy dog come true.
When you look on paper at the injuries that she had that expected her to ever walk again. And so this truly is a miracle.
Thursday was the first time Tegan met her new companion assistance dog, a dog that is supposed to make life a little bit easier.
Just opening and closing doors, picking up things that Tegan may drop.
Jake Gill has been training Charlie for months now. Jake will spend time this weekend in Milwaukee to be with both Tegan and Charlie as they take time to get used to each other. Tegan is able to walk with the help of a walker, but Charlie will soon be her crutch to lean on.
She'll also be a support dog for her as well. She'll wear a special harness, and Tegan will be able to use her as a support as she's walking.
Gill is one of many who have given either time or donations, but the man who made it all possible, Charlie Sheen.
And it was Charlie Sheen. We're here because him making this possible was just amazing.
I was really happy to just have a friend to help me out.